problems, and there's a lot of fixations, or there's a lot of correction that needs to be done. But that's in the old, in the new innovations, the new cutting edge technology. Typically, needs a lot of refinement needs to be done. Today, what we are going to focus more on the social science aspect. Okay, for example, history, ethics, politics, religion, economy, and for example, I had a conversation. I had a conversation with someone about this utilizations of this. For example, in the history, finding out, for example, if someone is a good person or bad person, that could be because that could be different, from a good person for one side in history might be a bad person for the other side, something like that. So those kind of. But I don't know if we have time to go that details, but let me get back to the agenda, and perhaps Rachel, you would like. I know you would like to share some discussion that we had in school first, and then talk more about what about this ChatGPT in our educations.
Yes, so thank you and good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Is that good? Good. Okay, thank you so much, Donnie. Donnie is one of our campus leaders with educational technology. And as he said, we have worked together on the Committee for Educational Technology. So as Donnie said, right before the semester started, when the AI, the company came out with the Chatgpt, became very, publicized. And there was a very big discussion on our faculty discussion list. And it was quite interesting to me to see the reaction, because this was the most that the faculty had talked to one another in so long. We had COVID. And then after COVID, we moved to a new a digital learning environment. We moved from Blackboard to Brightspace, and it was so much the faculty were overwhelmed between COVID and the Brightspace, and we just, but this topic brought the faculty together in a way that I have not seen in a long time. So to that end, it was interesting. So what we did at our Faculty Development Center, we decided to run a series of conversations about ChatGPT in different areas of study. So we looked at writing, ChatGPT and writing. We had a webinar about that. Then we had ChatGPT and talking about issues of, I guess, related to sociology and to social justice as a theme. And then the one that I most recently went to, the one that I attended most recently was ChatGPT in the math and science classroom. So I was listening to the mathematics professor discuss his experience with ChatGPT. And I said, clearly, ChatGPT is not a math major. I think ChatGPT is an English major, because obviously it's a language producing program. To me, it does much better when it is obviously writing an essay about literature or doing something along those lines. It seems to perform pretty well. So I began to think of this. I put the presentation together thinking about ChatGPT as being an English major. And I know it's silly, but I just conceptualize, this is a bot that is supposed to be interacting with us, as artificial intelligence, as a human being. I mean, not really, but we're interacting with this AI as if it were a human being. So that's what I did. So Donnie, did you want to share my slides or can I try to share them or what do you think?
Yeah, feel free. Can you?
I think I can. Let's see if I can do this. Oh, I can show you this. Wait, let me do this. I'll share this with you before I start. Does everybody see that?
Yay, the baby.
So
Oh my goodness. So tiny.
I do not
This is
have
like 2
much.
days, 3 days.
Yeah, the baby came at like 3 a.m. So it was not, wait, the baby is not even 2 days old. So I did not sleep much.
Oh my
Isn't he
goodness.
cute? He's so cute.
Oh
So we
yes,
can look at,
definitely.
why don't we just look at baby pictures all day? No, okay.
Yes,
So
for sure. It's this I don't know what happened. I mean, I don't know why. When we look at the baby's faces, makes us, I don't know, it
uh,
feels so released,
endorphins
It's
or
exactly what
something.
you said.
Yeah.
We can just watching it all day long. It's
And then
amazing.
we don't have to worry about Chat
Yeah,
GPT.
it's amazing. Mm.
So
So congratulations
so
again.
I will say when I put this together, I had very little sleep, but I was thinking about, because I am a writer,
Mhm,
and I will tell you a story. I have a side job. I did have a side job
mhm,
where I wrote for a car insurance company, and I wrote a
mm,
lot of articles. And I was fired because they turned to AI. And I wrote about this experience, and I was published in Inside Higher Education, about a month ago, because I realized that ChatGPT could easily do the kind of writing I was doing, the business writing, right? Content-driven advertising. And you had to have SEO words and terms to make the Google pick it up. So indeed, I do think my premise is that ChatGPT, as writers, many of us can move to becoming editors instead of writers, and that's scary. So instead of hiring me and maybe 10 other writers, now you just need the one editor, right, to check the factual information that has been produced.
mhm.
So I was
It's
fired because
amazing.
of ChatGPT, fired. And I was fired by like a 25-year-old, so it's even worse. That's okay. It's not a problem. So obviously, then you've discussed this. I am amazed personally by the data that they've been training this with. I think it's impressive. Uh, Absolutely incredible what's going on. And in terms of the fact that this even works as well as it does, it's amazing to me. So as I said to my math colleague, I said, ChatGPT, right? It's a writing program, really. It's got a very you've probably talked about this or seen it. It's very confident. It has a confident voice. It's error-free for the most part in terms of syntax, punctuation, grammar, and it can cross genres, from poetry to prose. I think it can even write screenplays. So it does really well. But as Donnie was saying, it falls down, right, when it comes to things like citing sources, right? It brings up sources that don't exist. It throws them in there. But if you say to ChatGPT, this is wrong, eventually it will apologize to you, which is odd, but it does. Now, what it's not good at, the mathematics professor was saying that, yes, like Donnie was saying, so what, in engineering, there are some settled things that are there. It knows about that. But the mathematics professor said that if he introduces into something a number that is not out there already, like an unusual set of numbers to run a proof or something, it makes pretty egregious errors. And when he tried to correct Chatgpt, because I know it's training, right? It's training. At first, it defended itself. And only it took a few times back and forth, and finally it apologized for giving a wrong answer. So that certainly, is interesting. So on our campus, we had the two extremes of reaction. Some people are saying, and I've have spoken to people around the country, embracing the technology as a way to address even social inequalities. To say that, students whose language, native language is not English, can now more easily create papers, their ideas can be expressed more fully. Also, in addition to that, and we don't think about this as much, students with certain processing disabilities, and just in general, it can revolutionize in a good way, well, at least a positive way. It has the possibility to revolutionize the writing process. However,
Rachel, are you trying to share your PDF file that you sent me? Or
yeah, can you see it or no?
not yet, not yet.
Oh. Let me see something. So that was not sharing the PDF? Let me see.
Yeah, we're still sharing the baby picture.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, you
No,
haven't
no, no.
seen it. Can you? I'm sorry. Can you see now?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. So I'll go
By the way,
back.
what's the name of the baby? There's a lot of questions about the name of the
Oh,
baby.
I'm sorry. Oh, you're looking at you, Elliot.
Elliot. I see. Okay.
That's my maiden name. So I said, I'm sorry. So I began with saying that this is my chat. This is how I imagine Chatgpt, right? Because chatbots, companies now put faces on their chatbots. So I imagined, I said, oh, there she is. She can write well. She can do all these things. She can write poetry and do wonderful, but not so much with mathematics. She is not so good at math. So, our faculty reactions are to either embrace it on the one end, but I think at New Paltz, Donnie, would you say at New Paltz, it is more the other side, right? That people are very, very upset.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one that I embrace it is still thinking. Or they are not expressing any interest yet. I
No,
think individually, there's some people who are embracing. I'm part of this people, not so much though, because in the I was just rethink about the Google that we had so many years back. We were surprised to see that, and then yet now it becomes common. So I don't know yet how are we going to. There's going to be some back and forth and reactions going on. Are we going to adapt with this technology somehow? Not embracing or decrying or banning it is, I don't know if it's a good move or not, because eventually it's going to get there.
I think that, yeah. No, I agree with you. I will say I was on a webinar on a panel discussion about this a few weeks ago. There were 3 people from West Coast in the US, from Idaho, Washington State, and somewhere else. And they reported that their faculty were very happy and very interested and excited. And I said, oh no, our faculty on the East Coast, at New Paltz were much more reactionary. I have faculty in my English department that will now give only written exams. in the classroom. And some people have talked about going also to oral exams because of this. And these are with English majors. So I don't think that's the way to go with this. I think that I can't see doing that, but I'll be interested to hear what you think. So obviously, and you've been talking about this, I'm interested in this idea, this intelligent tutoring idea. This could be really fascinating, and I guess it's already out there. Adaptive learning programs where you kind of drill on grammar, that's already there. But having it in a bot situation where the AI is working with the student and the student may ask a question, and that really might be interesting. Another way that students are certainly using it now is to, and I think that this is ethical, right? I would say this would be an ethical way to use it, would be to develop maybe some preliminary ideas about a topic. I don't know what to say about the grammar part of it. Today, I took a piece of writing that was filled with grammatical errors and also problems in diction. And I put it in and I said, can you fix it? And Chatgpt fixed it for me. Oh, so what
And
do
with
we do
zero
with that?
with zero errors, is it correct?
With zero errors, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. Now, I will say, I have spoken with faculty. I have done this. I have been using it now. It saves me a lot of time. I create, I've always done this with my students, paragraphs or essays that have grammatical errors, syntactical errors. And I do it as a training, proofread this and see if you can find the error. And obviously asking Chatgpt to make a 300-word paragraph with 2 sentence fragments, it saves me time. And I tell it what topic to write about. And it does it. Another thing, I spoke to a faculty member who has used it to produce a syllabus for himself. Now, he didn't use the whole syllabus. He just used a couple of the ideas it came up with. And then there's an article here I was looking at. It's from this article, collaborating with Chatgpt, considering the implications of generative artificial intelligence for journalism and media. And this faculty member wrote a scholarly article. And his co-author was Chatgpt. I don't. Anyway,
Wow.
but he gave Chatgpt credit. Maybe, I don't know. So this is the part that I really like. I think all of us, if you've used it, this is a part that's fun, right? You can just play with it because you can play with language, like rewrite this paragraph and the style of, and fill it in, proud, whatever you want to say. So I fed it. I did this morning. I fed it 2 paragraphs from a scholarly journal article, and it wrote a haiku. But I don't think this is right? This is supposed to be 5 syllables. Is that correct? A haiku is 575. Anyway, but it made a good attempt, right? So this is the part that's fun for writing instructors, people such as myself. This is what I kind of enjoy fooling with it. So I have a colleague in the English department who has analyzed Chatgpt's writing style. And I thought this was really, really interesting. So first of all, that, it writes in kind of a medium length sentence. And now he says it averages about 20 words per sentence, okay? And ChatGPT writes sentences, kind of longer sentences than the actual student. So I had another colleague that said, that is very sad that ChatGPT is writing at a higher level than these are English majors. Anyway, so that was interesting. Now, ChatGPT uses topic, they've programmed it to use topic sentences in these paragraphs, that they begin with the topic sentence. So they've trained it well when it comes to that, but it's kind of, we would say, right, formulaic. We tell students a topic sentence, but obviously you break that rule when you get a little more sophisticated. But anyway, so he said you can tell if it's written by ChatGPT, it'll have topic sentence. Oh, this was cute. It makes no mistakes with punctuation. It follows grammar rule books to perfection. And of course, real authors don't do that. They take some liberties with punctuation. Right. I have not been able, has anyone tried to get ChatGPT to write a long paragraph? It won't go, it will not write long paragraphs. So here's an example of what it does. I asked it to write I was very explicit, and I asked it to write a 10-sentence paragraph about the history of Manhattan. And this is what it routinely does. For some reason, the way it's been trained, it breaks it up. It doesn't put it all in one paragraph. And I don't know why. It must be the way that they've trained it to do. So, and then I said, meet Dolly. Has anyone played with this yet? The art
No, who is this?
generator? This is the art generator made by the same the same people who do ChatGPT, do Dolly. This is Dolly 2. It creates art. So you type it and you say what you want it to create, and you say, I want this in the style of Picasso or whatever, and it creates it. So, as a writing instructor, I'm just still not sure how, what quite to do with it at this point. And I think all of us as educators are thinking about the ethical use of it in the classroom, thinking about, not even to mention, and maybe, we'll talk about this in the social sciences, but, what point of view, right, is being privileged? What point of view is being privileged through its training and what it's been trained on? So, I
Amazing.
it is amazing. And I still think, though, that for the majority of our students, if they're going into, corporate world, they're probably going to be using this, and they're going to be, I saw a story about Davos, all the CEOs and the world leaders at Davos. Well, Davos, the economists, they were using they were laughing about using ChatGPT to create emails to one another. So I think this is just going to be a staple of any kind of business discourse. Obviously internal memos or business letters or content-driven advertising. I think that's just going to be standard. But you're going to need the content area expert, the subject matter expert, to be the editor. So what does that mean for education? How will our students then know when an error has been made, if, this is my colleagues say, if they're not writing themselves, do they really know literature? Well, maybe they do. Maybe they do know. Maybe you don't. Do you have to? Here's the question from my field. To be a good writer, does an editor need to be a good writer? Not necessarily. So it's just it's still, I don't know what to do. I'm still perplexed. But I can see that business, in academia, we'll be discussing this for another decade, right? And we won't know what to do. Or we'll give oral exams, or we'll do something silly, but business will have just gone on. And this will be a part of the workplace, I think. So that's
Yeah.
all I really have to share. There's nothing very deep. We
No, I
all are in
mean,
the same.
at this point, I think everyone is still learning and still reacting on this. So, and the
Yeah,
ChatGPT itself is evolving by itself. To be, I'm so sorry to say it in a better way actually, because he understand, oh, the people who are using me is not happy, and then he's trying to improve. So in that sense actually, and so we are kind of teaching them as well. So but I like the idea about using AI to train students, because there's some in some published book, and we are using electronic books sometimes in my engineering courses. There's some electronic books already have this kind of AI capability in
yeah,
giving students non-linear questions. I mean, will so the next question will be based on the answer. If the answer is not correct, it gives them a something to learn before getting more. So and then in the problems involving numbers is easy, because you can tell, oh, this is wrong, this is right, and then it's far or close to the answer is easy. But now I think this AI now can also do the same similar tactic or similar algorithm for a language as well. How far it is from a someone who are very well trained in English, and then someone who are novice. I think there's some measurement to do that, which is actually good. So I like the idea actually of using this. This is something that if students who are aware of this, he would learn. Oh, this is a good sentence. I like this. This is I have to copy this. I have to be willing to accept that I'm not yet there. But I agree that it's a good thing. And oh, by the way, maybe there's some request by audience to share. Do you mind sharing that PDF with people or with audience or not?
I think especially, sure. And actually, you have a cop.
I have copy. I can just put it up
You
here.
can do that,
Yeah.
because I have to say, I think my colleague is doing good work. I think he will continue to analyze the Chat GPT language and what it does. I think that's fascinating.
Mhm.
I do not think, and I don't know if you've talked about this, I could be wrong, but I do not think that plagiarism, the plagiarism detection software, that's easy. Here it's a big chunk of text and it's over here and I can see it. I don't see how they're going to detect.
Mhm.
I know CNET, the website CNET, they have been accused. I mean, they've just been using AI writing for like a year now,
Yeah.
and nobody noticed. So
It's just it's true. It's true. Yeah. So those things, and then because I mean now we found, for example, there is that ChatGPT tends to have a long sentence but short paragraph, and then very punctual in the grammar, for example. And but that I don't think that's gonna be that long. I mean, eventually, I'm sure it may become realistic that they can produce a very long paragraphs, and they're getting better on that. And then so students who are willing to learn is supposed to catch up with this. And because when I did it by myself, I realized that there's some repetition sometimes, and the language or the language or the example that we use is somewhat too broad. It's not too specific. We try to, for example, using it for getting a call for papers for our conference, and it's very nicely laid out, but there's missing details. So we have to put those details in. I know if it's citing websites, it's very quite accurate on that, but if it's like what you said, is so I was not completely wrong when we citing articles. There's some problems, still a lot of problems going on. Yeah. Mhm. Now, before we turn into a lot questions, maybe from audience, thank you so much again, Rachel. And then maybe there's going to be some. I would like to turn a little bit into to Dr. Ati about these questions about utilization in the sociology and complaints and kind of concern with teachers about, because the students now is not really studying. They're just, okay, what do you think about this, fact, and then they just nicely laid out. And Rachel, believe it or not, is the ChatGPT is also good in Indonesian now, in my language. It's already,
That's
I thought it's
cool.
only the
That's
English.
cool.
And I was only the English. It turns out no, it's also, if you ask Indonesian, it gives you the Indonesian. So it's I don't know, it's amazing, but at the same time it's also concerning. So what do you think about these questions about there? I mean, that's just last talk about. So how are we going to grade? Because we don't know. It's the students uh, deep learning, deep studying about all of these resources, or just simply ask and then they get something out of it. What is your
Yeah, well, thank
experience
you
on
so
this?
much. Okay, I don't have any PowerPoint because you told me not to have a PowerPoint, so I will be just talking about this. But yeah, there are lots of debates and interesting factors that we need to take into account when we are talking about ChatGPT. And similar to what happened at your place, in my place, there has been a lot of faculty meetings as well discussing this, and there's pros and cons about this. Well, the way that I've been using ChatGPT in my own teaching is that I of course, just to let students know that I'm aware about ChatGPT, so that, and also emphasizing the notions that ChatGPT is a tool, right? So a tool that we can use, but it depends on how we use it, right? So it's just a tool and we are still in control of the tool. So I think that is also very important aspect that we need to take into account. Another things that I also emphasize in my classes is that, well, you can use that tool, but you still need your creativity and your critical thinking. I think critical thinking is very important within this context because, as we can see, ChatGPT, especially the way that it writes, it's very flat, right? It's usually not very critical. It's descriptive, and so to some extent, it's at least at this point, it's quite easy to detect, whether something is coming from ChatGPT because of the flatness of the writing. I feel like there is no soul in that writing. When somebody, the real person, is actually writing a piece, we can feel that there is that soul, there is that energy within it. But when ChatGPT is doing it, it's just very flat, right? So it's because there's lack of critical thinking, right? Well, I agree with Rachel that there are several benefits that we can get from ChatGPT, including, addressing inequality in terms of accessibility, for native English speakers, or for people who have been having, difficulty processing and so on. But on the other side, sociologically speaking, as Rachel also mentioned a little bit, ChatGPT may actually enhance inequality, right? Because the data that have been used by ChatGPT are not value-free, right? So there's a lot of racism, classism, sexism that are in this data. So this kind of technology actually may enhance this inequality, right? So the questions of whose voices are being represented, that is very important to me, right? Because this will create even more silencing effects for the marginalized groups, right? The groups that haven't been able to voice their concern, and groups that haven't been able to be heard will be silenced even further with this. So that is my biggest concern there, to what extent that the development of ChatGPT actually will create even a bigger gap in silencing the already marginalized groups. Well, keep in mind that, in doing teaching, I'm using post-colonial approach. So I've been trying to give voices, or to not only give, but because they have their own voices, but to amplify the voices of these marginalized groups. Yet with this ChatGPT, then, it's even more challenging to do that. So I feel that, ChatGPT may further colonize our mind, and we have to be careful about this, right? So because, the agency of, for example, indigenous groups who haven't had chance to write their thinking and their point of views are not being used by this kind of technology because they are not on the webs, they are not online, right? So how can we then think of this, and how can we address this issue? I think is very, very important in this context. So that's one thing that I've been thinking about, to what extent that this kind of technology then create further marginalizations and enhance the already hegemonic ideas that have been there to begin with, right? Well, a second thought that I've been doing in my class is to use ChatGPT data or ChatGPT and compare the result with the results from other sources of information. And then ask my students whose voices are being silenced or whose voices are not there. So this way, then again, I'm asking them to compare sources, right? One of the assignments that I had with my classes is, well, find this information from ChatGPT, find this information from the major media outlets, find this information from scholarly sources, find the information from other sources, and then compare those informations, and then analyze those informations and think, whose voices are being amplified and whose voices are being marginalized. So that way, then again, there needs to be a critical thinking of these issues, right? So that is one of the ways that I've been using. Another thing that I think is very important, as Rachel mentioned, is when I teach a course on writing proposal, right? So ChatGPT can be useful in this kind of class in terms of generating potential ideas for research topics, for example, right? So, that is the first step that students has to think about before they write a proposal, so they can, take a look at, how ChatGPT give them more ideas, so that, that can be useful. And actually, like yesterday, I was having conversation with my brother who is in the audience right now. How we have been also talking about this among ourselves as well. And he also give me ideas about, he actually referred me to another article that shows, how can we combine the use of like Google Scholars, Zotero, ChatGPT, and all other, tools to help us to write a proposal. Yet, the important aspect of that is, again, they're just tools, but we still need to have the basic ideas and basic knowledge. Without strong basic ideas and knowledge, then these tools actually may mislead us, right? So, because sometimes the information available for us are misleading. And then if we do not know, or if we do not check the accuracy of the informations, then we will end up with misleading writing, basically. So I think I would not worry, at least in the next few years, that this technology will replace us as a teacher, as long as we give our students strong background knowledge, and also critical knowledge and abilities to be innovative and to be creative, right? Because these technologies will help us, but it is still human beings who have to drive the creativity, the critical thinking, and also the basic knowledge and ideas that are being used, right? So this this kind of technology actually give us more ideas that we need to be a better teacher in teaching this kind of knowledge, like critical thinking, analytical thinking, so that we are not being misled by the problems and the biases from this technology, because otherwise, then we will, well, sociologically speaking, we will have more divided societies, right? If we just rely on this technology, we have to think who have access to this technology. What kind of data is this technology have been using, right? So if we just rely too much without thinking critically about this, then we will have more inequality, more injustice, and more gap between different groups of people. And also the division, right? Divisions among different groups. Like right now, I know, throughout the world, globally, there have been like, problems, how hoax, right? Like news that are not real have been affecting people and dividing people, creating, ideological division, right, among communities across the globe. So ChatGPT and other AI technologies, can create even further divisions if we are not careful. However, on the other hand, it may also, create a lot of benefits. So I see that this technology have two different phases, right? Depending on which phase that we, see, then, it will create different outcomes, right? So I think ethical, moral issues are also very important within this context. What kind of commitment that we are having in using this technology? Do we want to use this technology to address certain, social issues such as injustices, or do we actually, well, it can be unintentionally, or do we, then, participate in creating and maintaining this kind of inequality and injustices? So that's just, my thought on this.
That's not just my thought.
Sorry, it's too
That's a
much.
big thought. That's a big thought. Wow, because I never been in your side, from this social justice and sociology point of view. But wow, remarkable. This is, I mean, I agree. I cannot agree more. And this is the technology itself, the ChatGPT itself is already creating this injustice for this gap, for example, in between students who would be willing to go beyond, like what you described before, in getting more critical and getting more, aware about what is going on with the outcome. And between those students and the other side is the student who just blindly following it. So there's already a big gap. What do you think, Rachel? I think this is a very important remark on here. I mean, I think as a teacher, I think we have to remind students about this. That hey, it's the same thing as what I've been doing in the class, where we have all of this software. Some students crazily every single day, using the software, and they keep getting better and keep getting creative, and some students just use it just for doing homework, and that's it. They don't do any more with that. So what do you
I
think?
think that the idea that Siti was talking about a marginalized culture. So then I began thinking about cultures where the maybe oral culture traditions, but not just that, but in the US, for example, it would be interesting, for example, and this would be like a history or an exercise, having a group of students maybe pick something from their regional history, cultural history, that is maybe little known in the US, and ask ChatGPT to write something, and then have them think about the answer that ChatGPT, because I would think they may be very offended by what ChatGPT has to say about their lived reality. Now, that would be fascinating. Right, and I'm seeing in the chat here, it's not supposed to be racist, but what I mean is, if I said write about, now maybe by now we could write about the Tulsa race riots that were held in the 1900s, but you could pick a maybe lesser known event and then have the students that know about that event just say, well, no, like you say, it's soulless. And it doesn't express what my family remembers of this. That might be really interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, well, I just saw that comment that ChatGPT is not trained specifically to generate racist or discriminatory responses. Well, you know, that's the intention, right? But of course, again, you know, uh, it's not intentionally racist, but you know, we have to think critically about that, right? So what kind of data are there, right? You know, and you know, what kind of data are more likely to be available? Who, you know, whose voices are more likely to be available, right? You know, so that's even more important, because then, you know, when people see ChatGPT as, oh, they are not racist, or they are not sexist, or they are not classist, then, you know, they're just following whatever is there without critically thinking about that, right? So that's actually, yeah, the danger, right? Yeah, I agree with you, Rachel. You know, for example, that's what I did in one of my assignments in my class. I asked them to, because I teach a class on disaster, right? So I asked them to find informations on disaster that hasn't been known very well, right? And then ask ChatGPT to get informations about that, and then see, you know, what kind of information is there. And again, it's very minimal, because this is not disaster that has been, you know, covered a lot by a lot of media. And then, you know, ask them to try to find more informations, or even, you know, get informations from local media that are closer to that disaster, and then they get more informations because of that, right? So again, that shows that, well, ChatGPT actually, because I also asked them to find informations on the more recent earthquake in Turkey and Syria, and there is not much, because it's too recent, right? Because the data hasn't been collected that much, because well, ChatGPT also mentioned that, you know, most of the data are collected up to 2021. So a lot of more recent events haven't had a lot of information. So that's another thing. You know, there is that biases in terms of the more recent events, right? But again, yeah, there are a lot of implied biases that is, you know, very important for us to be aware about. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this ideally, you know, this engine supposed to be free of those, and then and I think at this early age, I think it's a very good exercise too for our students, definitely. And then more and more, I think it's going to be more difficult. So the students are actually our students are required to be more critical. You know, I mean, it's also our obligation as well to train them to be more critical about this, but many different kind of tools. And then for example, in engineering, sorry to go back again, engineering, there's some tools that allow students to simulate physical phenomenon, and this tool can generate this, you know, nice pictures and of perhaps temperature or something like that, but that's necessarily correct. It depends on how you give the input. You put a wrong input, is not the right input, even though it looks very beautiful and, you know, somewhat reasonable, but if you go some details, there is going to be some if it's a mistake, then it's a mistake that you can find a mistake. But again, it requires a higher level thinking, in the sense that we cannot just train the students on the first, on the second or third level in the Bloom taxonomy anymore. Now we really have to push, you know, our teaching to the top, like to the sixth, and even, I don't know, even beyond. Maybe I don't know if there is such thing, but yeah, I think this is a very important issue that you brought up, Dr.
I'm seeing too in the chat about this revolution. It's like the internet in 1995. I went to a talk where someone said this is just the beginning, because with the quantum computing, I mean, this is just a true revolution. According to one of the speakers whom I was listening to about this, where it will get so trained that it really will be quite good, actually. But again, we're talking about the humanity of it and the moral aspect and the things that are hard to quantify, because maybe it will get the engineering program completely beautiful, somehow. I don't know how, but but then there'll be that human element, that it won't have. It is a revolution. It's a revolution, no doubt.
Mhm. So,
Exactly.
go ahead with that. Sorry.
Yeah. This is a very, very important revolution, and it will, change the way that we interact with each other, the way that we have to teach, right? Well, right now, that's why we have these conversations, right? Because we have to think of, different ways of teachings as well. So it is very important. But yeah, I absolutely agree with you, Rachel, that this is a moral and ethical, questions, right? That we need to think about. What is education for, right? Is it just, I think that's a very important, questions that we need to think as a teacher, right? So how, what is education for, and how we educate, and why we need that education, right? So to me, education, one of the basic reason of education is for humanity, right? So, to create justice, to create, to ensure human rights, right? So, well, of course, yes, all of these technologies are very, very useful, but they are not human beings. And we still need to make sure that we have agency and control over this, right? We should not just, okay, this is the well, it is amazing, right? And this is part of our life right now. But I think, this is the time when we need to think about what is the main goal of education. What is education for, right? Do we just want to, write something that is, I don't know, that doesn't really have a lot
I know what you
of,
mean. Mhm.
because we can write, thousands of articles, but what are those for, right? So do we want to write articles to inform people, to really make people think about certain topics? Do we want to, what should I say? This is just remind me of like industrial revolutions, right? We are in the middle of another kind of revolutions based on AI technology. And as we can see in the past with the industrial revolutions, they completely changed the way that we live, right? So we need to think about that, the future of humanity, the future of us as human beings, right? And the future of educations, what will it looks, and what kind of commitment we have.
Mhm. Let's see if we can have perhaps some questions from audience, or some comments from audience for a little bit. I'll try to wrap up in 15 or 20 minutes, but this is a very, very good topic. I was so nervous in the beginning, but thank you so much for both of you. But let's see if there are some questions, or there's a lot of comments. I really cannot follow. There's audience has been having their own conversations on this. We have right now 300 is full capacity. There's in YouTube there are some people also watching, and maybe there are some people also watching in the Facebook. Sometimes they stream it in Facebook as well. So Bapak-bapak, ini ibu-ibu, kalau misalnya shy to English, boleh pakai bahasa Indonesia, silakan. But I would prefer to speak in English. But if you shy, that's fine. Okay. Maybe just a couple of questions, and then we try to answer that.
Ya, saya juga bisa jawab bahasa Indonesia kalau mau dijawab bahasa Indonesia.
There's some trying to raise your hand. Pak Beli ya, Beli Rahdianto, are you trying to say something? Yeah, I don't know what happened with him.
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, sure, yeah. Oh, sorry, yes, Kira, go ahead.
Okay.
Kira.
Yeah, this is a very interesting conversation. So, yeah, thank you for.
Where are you from, Kirana?
I'm from Bekasi, and I'm going to do a master's at the University of Manchester in digital development. So this is very relevant for my studies. And my question is actually related to what Bu Siti Kusujiarti is already mentioned, but I want to ask further. Because I'm gonna study how digital technologies can improve social conditions. So I'm kind of biased towards like what Rachel is saying about like the reaction people embrace new technologies that can address social inequality. But I'm actually interested in how digital technologies can also have adverse consequences. So what Bu Siti is saying, there's a concept in digital development. It's called adverse digital incorporation. So how digital inclusion can actually disadvantage marginalized groups. So I just want to ask, like, what are some adverse consequences of Chatgpt for marginalized groups, and how we can research about this? Because like I'm still exploring research topics for my master's dissertation, and this could be potentially like some research topics. And based on what I read, like the research topic for Chatgpt is focuses on like how it impacts academia or how it impacts plagiarism, but there's still limited research about how it actually improves or reduces social inequalities. So I'm just curious about your thoughts about this. Thank you.
Oh, I'll just say something. I had a colleague, this is tangentially related, I think it's a little related, who made a very startling comment that only, okay, give it a few generations, but a generation from now, like my grandson, if he is a privileged person, he will be forced by his good prep school, who will not let him use Chatgpt. He will learn to write. Okay, this is what she hypothesizes. But that in mass education and in education where you're not taking the same care or don't have the same resources, it may be that people are no longer literate in the way. Now, I'm just throwing that out there. Who knows? But I thought she made an interesting point. Now, she went further to say, well, thinking is writing. Okay, and I understand that, of course, as a writer, but I also have a son who is a civil engineer who did very little writing. He still does hardly any writing. He will probably use Chatgpt every day in his office, but he thinks mathematically. But this, I mean, who knows? Maybe in mass education, we don't even teach the children anymore how to write. But what would that mean psychologically? I don't know. So that's one thing I've been thinking about.
Yeah, and another example is again, the questions of access, right? Who have access to ChatGPT? Right now, most of us who are in the academic institutions have access to that. But how about, let's say, people in rural areas in some parts of Indonesia who don't even have, access to steady internet, for example, let alone access to ChatGPT. So they will be lagging behind even further, and children who were born in, in rural, remote areas in Indonesia, for example, right, that do not have even access to computer, right? So imagine that, how then they will be able to take advantage of the benefits from ChatGPT. And it's not just in Indonesia. So again, this is a global inequality, right? So just thinking about access, but also knowledge, right? What kind of knowledge that we are privileging through ChatGPT? Because there are so many different types of knowledge as well that are not in ChatGPT, right? Like indigenous knowledge, for example, right? That they don't actually write and do not publish it, right? So it's not in ChatGPT. So this kind of knowledge then will probably die, and extinct, because of that, if, nobody would continue, spreading this type of knowledge. So again, then in the future, we may be just having certain type of knowledge available for younger generations, while we need, as going back to the notions of humanity, of human beings, we need to have diversity of knowledge, right? But this technology may create, again, extinctions of certain types of knowledge that are not being privileged or are not in, are not included in this technology. So there's a process of exclusion as well, right? That certain knowledge, certain people will have access, but others will be lagging behind because of that.
What do you think, Kirana?
Okay, I'm going to comment a little bit, because what Bu Siti Kusuyarti is saying is digital exclusion. So people who are excluded from digital system. So what I'm asking is about, like, people are included in the digital system, so they can use ChatGPT, but because they're marginalized groups, so maybe they don't have digital literacy or something like that, so they have adverse effects from ChatGPT. So they're not excluded, they're actually included, because the research paper is saying, like, in the global south, even though in the rural areas there are still people who are excluded, but more and more people are included in the digital system. So now, like, the digital exclusion is kind of like obsolete. So now we also need to research about people who are included in a digital system, but because of, like, lack of digital literacy or something else, so they're actually they have adverse effects. They don't really get advantage from the ChatGPT or from the digital system. So that's what I'm asking.
Well, there is always two sides of a coin. So you can see it different way. I mean, there is, what is mentioned, I think I understand, and it's in the for example, it's very easy context, in our home country, for example, you can you can easily observe that. But I understand that at the same time, the internet also trying to include so many people. I mean, last COVID, I remember I was surprised that even in Long Island, there is some of my students didn't get good connections. And I was so surprised with that, So what you see around you may not be, ideally uniform across the board, And what I can really sense what Buati is concerning about. I mean, I didn't really realize it, but when she mentioned it, yeah, I realize, but because even among our students themselves, some already realize what is GPT going on, and some didn't even know. Like, and it is in the United States, in among American students, some didn't even care. Some even just let it go. Didn't bother. So this is somewhat unfortunate. At some point, I mean, in the past, we remember when the, for example, telephone came. We just had conversation 3 days ago about our family back home in around 1975 or something. Not many people having telephone, in our home. And I remember my family didn't have telephone. It was kind of there's some separation between those families who have telephone and not. But eventually now it's becoming very common. So at some point, maybe this technology eventually become more and more common. Although there are some still people who do not have telephone right now, and then but there is some wisdom that is the most sad thing is that this a lot of wisdom that are gone, and it's even somewhat sad and dangerous at the same time, because a lot of values in that core that are crucial and important actually for the life of this nature and our sustainable living in this world, and yet it's starting to get eroded, little by little, replaced by something that I don't know. So I hope it's good, but I'm not really sure. That's just for a take example. This medicine, for example, this in the past when I was a kid, we get used to it a lot of natural medicine that now got replaced. Now people tend to get sick first and then get medicine instead of being healthy and prevented from being sick. So
Well, and
I understand. Yeah.
if it becomes that this digital wisdom is tied maybe, and I don't know, because I'm not sure how it's trained to an algorithm. I mean, I don't know. So let's say in the global South, you begin to put some stuff on the internet. So now ChatGPT can be grabbing some of this wisdom. But is it tied to corporate algorithms? Or, I mean, I don't know. I'm assuming that, yeah. So maybe you can put something up, but it doesn't mean, will ChatGPT even find it? If you don't have the strong, whatever the SEO words and all the Google stuff so maybe even, yes, you have to be putting the wisdom onto, house somewhere on the internet. But even if you do that, will it be part of the collective wisdom? I don't know.
Big question.
That's right. It seems like, it seems like it is more inclusive because, like, well, more people can, have access, but we also need to think of the other side, right? There are a lot more people that are also being excluded from the process. I'm just looking at one of the questions there that they changed the assignments in the class and focus more on project, more into practical. Yeah, that's why I think well, over here, at least in the US, experiential learning is now getting more and more popular here. Project-based learning, case-based learning, I think those are, part of the responses that people have been developing, because of this, AI development as well. So I do that as well. I combine my classes with community engagement so that they have to combine their experience in community engagement and then the use of technology. So that way, then they cannot just, look at Chatgpt, but they have to incorporate their experience from community engagement, interacting with local community agencies and so on. Another strategy that I've been using is to use case studies, right? And also incorporating their own perspective, their own experience. That way, then again, it is also putting the humanity aspect of them, instead of, just asking very straightforward question.
Yeah, so thank you very much for your question, Kira. Let me move on to just one more to Pak Hari Subagio. He's been raising his hand, so Pak Hari Subagio, silakan. If you still want to ask questions. Oh, maybe not. I think I don't know what's going on with him. There's some other hands raised up, but that's the only one hand that I can see now because other hand already gone. Oh, Pak Hari, silakan.
Oh ya.
Wanted to check.
Maybe
Terima
just
kasih.
2 minutes, ya, 2 or 3 minutes.
I am
ya.
not in English. Terima kasih Pak Rahmadian. Saya mencoba chat untuk PJBL tentang AI, ya, sehingga kami di-share di chat Pak, dicek oleh Pak Billy mengenai plagiarisme. Tentunya itu sangat penting untuk pendidikan ke depan. Itu saja pertanyaannya. Terima kasih Pak.
Gimana tulisannya gimana? Saya mau bilang.
Pertanyaannya pendidikan ChatGPT untuk memacu pendidikan masa depan itu bagaimana? Itu saja pertanyaannya Pak. Terima kasih.
Oke, Bu Ati bisa jawab. Tadi
Maksudnya,
udah banyak kita.
Ya, yang sudah kita bicarakan selama ini kan itu juga sudah, maksudnya ya kita bisa pakai ChatGPT untuk pendidikan dalam berbagai hal. Kita bisa gunakan itu sebagai alat untuk mengajar, bisa gunakan itu sebagai alat untuk membuat assignment yang kreatif dan sebagainya. Jadi selama ini tadi kita sudah bicarakan, saya kira berbagai hal yang berkaitan dengan itu.
So Rachel, it's true. So Rachel, the gentleman was asking what is the usefulness of this ChatGPT for improving our education. I think we've been discussing it. If you would like to, perhaps, I think it's a good time to summarize anyway. So for sure there's a lot of negativity going on still, because this tool is still in the progress. So in our conversation we try to come up with any beneficial knowledge and understanding that we can get from this utilizing this tool. We recognize this ChatGPT as a tool, and as a human being we recognize our power to be in control on this tool and not to be controlled by this tool. We recognize that this tool, according to Dr. Ati, has bias, and some may disagree with that. I agree that is because it's biased because it's based on data, and the data is not equally contributed by a lot of people. It is, if his data is contributed by people who are like this cake, then people will like the data the tool will be biased to this particular cake. And we also came up with the idea that this tool certainly requires students to be more critical, and there are some students be perhaps not wanting to go there, but essentially we as the educators we require to remind them about this about the fact that students need to be more critical, and we also need to be to have a lot of assignments, be more creative in generating assignments. And now in the beginning we recognize the signs of products of this ChatGPT, uh, sentences that are perfect, and sentences that are long, paragraphs that are short, and a lot of are already summarized in the PDF file. We also recognize mathematically are still weak, and perhaps at some point maybe it's getting better. Fundamentally, in some technologies, kind of not so recent. So if we putting requests on recent informations, it might not give you the right answer. It gives you citations still problematic, and those all of those if we put them together, I think if we looking on the bright side, it's again requires us to be just be mindful about this and be more creative and be more critical about this tool. So I don't know if you feel free to add if I have any missing any points.
I think you summarize it well.
I think
I'll try
it
my
may,
best.
no, it's beautiful. And I think that the more when I'm listening to what we're saying, I can see though why, you know, maybe the English writing, the writing faculty of any area, it really hits us at the heart though, because I teach writing. So do you even need me? It's an existential, you know,
I think
crisis.
you know
crisis.
no, I think it's just. I mean, I'm thinking about it as eventually I'm going to meet everyone. You know, it just at this point you think it's going to be it's hitting you, but I don't think it's hitting everyone. It's going to be hitting everyone. I yeah. So but of course that the first thing that they try is English, because it has to be conveyed in English. So therefore the infrastructure itself has to be correct, you know. So that's the really, I don't know how many years they've been developing this, and so that's, I don't think it's done yet, but this is almost ready, and then I think they're trying to catch up with other things. But I already realized this, that question about, I've been telling my students that they don't need me, you guys don't need me anymore actually, because all of this engineering, you know, exercise, YouTube, you know, lectures are all there. You only need me whenever you need me. You know, if you don't understand this, you can ask me. I don't really need to be here and then teach you. But somehow many kids are still showing up in the classes. So, but I do realize that at some point, you know. But thank you so much again for you coming. I mean, it's already 9:38. I don't want to get too long in this. Uh, and again, thank you for Buati and Rachel. Congratulations again for the baby ride. I'm so thankful that that you spend. I didn't realize that you are in the middle of this coming of the newborn. So sorry about this, but I do thank you for your share and what it definitely. I'm sorry for asking in the last minute, but I know that I was asking the right person for on this. So. And I'm for everyone else, I'm so sorry that we are going to close off. And I have to tell you that we can meet again perhaps after the fasting month, because I don't think we're going to be able to do any session during the fasting months, which is going to be starting in 12 days from now. So we probably seeing maybe in April, or even end of April, or even May actually. So Uni Dwi, thank you so much for the time and slot that you give for us to have discussion tonight. I hope this is valuable and enjoyable, and also information, quite informative for a lot of you, and I recognize that so many of you coming not only from Jakarta, from other cities of the country. Welcome, and then thank you so much for coming. Thank you everyone, and then have a nice weekend day. I don't know exactly now is it raining or sunny in Jakarta. I hope it's a pleasant day. Thank you, Nidwi. Thank the time is yours now.
Terima kasih, Prof. Ini menarik sekali topik hari ini. Ini mohon maaf nih, karena lagi di rumah, jadi kayaknya agak berisik. Oke, ini kira-kira sesi selanjutnya kapan nih, Prof? Apa Ramadan nanti kita libur?
Kayaknya saya udah pikir-pikir kayaknya berat. Karena jam saya nanti udah sekarang masih jam 10, tapi minggu depan saya udah jam 11 ini. Jadi kalau saya dan sholat tarawihnya itu baru mulai 8:30, jadi kita selesai jam 12, mungkin baru selesai. Saya coba kalau ada sih, kalau ada yang mau. Nanti fakulti juga ada yang belum tentu ada yang mau juga soalnya.
Oke.
Malam
nanti
kan.
Kita coba.
Jadi kita nanti kita coba kayak mungkin ada fakulti dari belahan dunia lain sih.
Diam.
Oke. Wah, siapa tuh?
Ini ada yang bocor kayaknya nih. Oke, mungkin nanti kita diskusi lagi ya, Prof ya. Semoga Ramadan, kalau tahun lalu kayaknya Ramadan kita full nggak ada diskusi itu soalnya. Ini H-2 minggu lagi nih mau Ramadan. Jadi semoga nanti sebelum Ramadan nanti ada satu kali sesi lagi mungkin ya, Prof ya.
Saya coba ya, tinggal minggu depan kan. Tapi udah ganti jam saya soalnya. Nanti kita lihat, mungkin Pak itu mau.
Oke.
Beliau.
Iya, tapi gak apa-apa. Nah ini Bapak Ibu nanti kalau jika memang ada kebutuhan untuk mencari rekan-rekan diaspora untuk diskusi kolaborasi riset atau membahas topik apapun, nanti bisa chat di saya atau WA di saya, jadi saya bisa info ke Pak Doni nih terkait topik atau kira-kira nanti rekan-rekan diaspora mana nih yang pas untuk mengisi topik tersebut gitu ya. Oke, baiklah Bapak Ibu, ini saya cuma mau menginformasikan terkait absensi, jadi nanti Bapak Ibu minggu depan akan di forward e-sertifikatnya ke email masing-masing, asalkan Bapak Ibu mengisi link absensi di chat sudah dikirim Mbak Siska. Gitu ya Bapak Ibu. Oke, sekali lagi terima kasih Bapak Ibu, ini udah sesi yang kedua kita ngebahas Chatgpt. Jadi semoga nanti bisa memberikan insight untuk Bapak Ibu, baik dosen maupun ada beberapa mahasiswa juga yang join diskusi kita hari ini. Sekali lagi terima kasih para speaker hari ini, Prof. Doni. Insya Allah nanti akan kita informasikan lagi kegiatan TikTok sesi 40 melihat waktu rekan-rekan diaspora di kemudian hari. Terima kasih Prof. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thanks.
Thank you, Prof.
Thanks Bu Ati ya.
Selamat, Prof Siti.
Thanks Rachel, masih dengar ya.
Ya, si Rachel udah pulang.